seen the film yet, I just want to give you a very brief synopsis. So, The Sexy Six, a story of lifelong friendship, chronicles the story of six South Norwalk natives: Helen, Ida, Jeanne, Marcia, Matty, and Phyllis, the daughters of factory workers who grew up in the Whistleville section of town, graduated from Norwalk High School, and followed a common trajectory: career girls, wives, and motherhood, all while maintaining their friendship and presence in the greater Norwalk community. So now I would like to introduce Kathy. She is a filmmaker and photographer based in San Francisco, and The Sexy Six is her third short documentary originating in her hometown of Norwalk, Connecticut. Her films have screened internationally, won numerous awards, and twice been named to the Spotlight Documentary Film Awards annual Top 250 Documentaries list. So without further ado, welcome, Kathy, and thank you for joining us this evening. Oh, Kathy, we need to unmute you, so give me one sec. We're gonna make sure. So Kathy, thanks for joining us.
Okay, and thank you for having me, Samantha. Thank you so much. It's great to see all you Norwalkers out there.
No, I was so excited when I found you on Facebook. It was back in April, and I saw that you had created this film and it was soon to be released. And I reached out to you and I said, how can we make this happen? How can we show this film to the people of Norwalk? And it's wonderful because all the programming that we're doing this year is focused on women, because 2020 is the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. And so much of the programming we've been doing has been focusing on women in history. But I think this story that you've brought to us is so important: female friendship. So thank you so much for that. So why don't we dive into some questions and learn more about the film? So first and foremost, COVID has transformed our lives this year. So please let us know, how are the ladies doing? Are they healthy? Are they safe? How are they dealing with the pandemic?
Well, I'm very happy to let everybody know that everyone is doing well. There have been no cases of COVID among the ladies or the families. But I think that the biggest thing that they're all dealing with is a change in their routine, as we all are from COVID. But I think when you are over 80, your routine and getting together with your friends, the things that you really depend on and rely on, and not being able to do that, that's been harder for them than it's been for the rest of us.
Definitely, definitely. Well, I'm so glad to hear that they're healthy and safe, and that their families are all healthy and safe as well. So thank you for updating us on that. So what inspired you to make this film?
Well, I think just looking at their friendship and having known it my entire life, because Jeanne is my mom, but also for those of you who've watched the film, and we won't give away any spoilers, but we will say that the Sexy Six between them had 19 children. And we're all back in touch thanks to this film, but a group of us never really lost touch. And we often talked, maybe joking about, oh, we should make a film about them. Well, as time went on and I actually did start to make films, it kind of, everyone started looking at me and saying, you should make a film about them. So about 3 years ago, we got started on this process, and we just finished up in February.
Now, watching the film, I'm just amazed at all the footage, the old photos, the photographs of Norwalk. Where did you acquire all of these images?
Well, first of all, the Norwalk Public Library History Room was a huge help. And I actually found them because I came to your website, and your website redirected me there, I believe. So you guys worked together on that. my grandfather, Charlie Rogowski, he was an amateur photographer and quite a home movie buff. And so he left us with tons of great footage. And he is was a lifelong Norwalker, born in 1907. So he had quite a bit of stuff for us. A lot of the footage that you may see in the sort of in the beginning of the film, when the ladies are reminiscing about growing up in Norwalk in the 1940s, Crystal Rink and the train trestle and different stuff like that. That's from right from his home movies. So then I sort of was putting things together and had a bit of a list, and that's when I came to you guys in Norwalk, and by way of, and then back to Norwalk Public Library. I worked with Candy Sterling there. I gave her a list, and I was in Norwalk, and she said, I think I got in touch with her on Monday. She said, come down on Wednesday. I will have pulled some stuff for you. And I had given her a bit of guidelines. Like I said, well, Washington Street, the train trestle, the railroad station, the factories. And she had pulled so much of that for me. It was incredible. So that, and then I went to the Library of Congress, which also had some stuff. There's also the Internet Archive, and Googling Creative Commons. Some of those images that are in the beginning when we talk about immigrants, those are public domain.
Wonderful. Now, did the other family members sort of provide you with some of the home movies and some of the photographs as well?
Oh, absolutely. We had over 700 photos, and at least 3 of the families were very good with the home movies. So we had lots and lots and lots of footage. But the majority of that came from probably, from the time the ladies were friends in high school. Some of them had some photos from high school. Of course, their Norwalk High School class of 51 yearbook was very helpful. And then when we got into some of the stuff, when they started having the kids and the parties and all that stuff, there were duplicates, triplicates beyond of the photos. But we have a great collection to put together for the families.
I'm sure you had more material than you needed to work with, right?
But that is a documentary filmmaker's dream.
Now, the Whistleville Newsreel was really, really interesting. How did you put that together? How was that created?
Well, when I was making this film and I was starting to gather different footage and different materials from the families and from the libraries and so on, I started to think, well, how can I tell this film rather than just having our talking heads? So how can we make it more interesting? And I thought, when I started to think about telling the story of Norwalk from, say, the 1850s, 1860s up till the early 1900s, I thought, well, like a newsreel, that would be really cool if we could do something like that. One of the things that the ladies loved doing, and I loved doing with them, was when we did do some of our interviews, I would say, well, what was Norwalk like back when you were growing up? And they would tell these great stories about living in Whistleville, which is part of South Norwalk. Some of them grew up on Ely Avenue, Low Street, Flax Hill Road, Avenue E, South Main Street. I think that was their hood. And so they would tell me these stories about their mother sending them to get a chicken, and they did not go to Stop and Shop to get that chicken. They went to the lady down the street who had chickens in her backyard and grabbed a chicken for them and prepared it for dinner, sent them home. How they went to the baker and to the butcher, the candy store, they walked to the movies, all these stories, and how they heard the train at night when it came by, the train whistle, which is why the part of town is called Whistleville, the trains coming from New York City. So I was, gathering their stories. They were recorded. We had a transcript. And I went back to visit yet again, maybe in early 2019. And when I arrived, my mom had found this book, Whistleville and Hunky Hill by John Kurtzman. It's a self-published book. And it basically fact-checked them, or I fact-checked them against that book. And John Kurtzman, I believe, is just a little bit younger than them. but the stories just totally checked out. So then I did some more research and kind of wrote a script, hired an actor, a voice actor who did the reading of the Whistleville. This is Whistleville, and then just had a great time finding the images to go with that.
Well, it's fantastic, and wow, talk about shopping small. You know, going around the corner to get the chicken. That's and it's amazing that that wasn't that long ago. We're talking what, maybe the 1930s?
Well, yeah, and I think this kind of went on up into the 50s, really until I guess the a 95 came through and kind of changed the world down there. There also were farms up on Flax Hill that they frequented. That was Hunky Hill, I believe.
Yes,
Down
yes,
through
it
the hill.
was.
Mm.
So I'm going to ask Diane, do we have any audience questions?
Yes, we have one. I can imagine it would have been challenging coordinating the ladies to meet with you. How often did you get together with them to put the film together?
I probably was back in Norwalk about 3 times a year for about a 2.5 year period. So I would say we probably got together a good 8 or 9 times. And this was an afternoon where we would sit and interview. And later on, we got to do audio to pick up the voices and stuff. But so we really went through the whole process from sitting down, just reminiscing, to then getting into more and more specific questions.
Great, that's we have our one question. Just remind everybody, you just type in your questions and Kathy will answer.
Thanks so much, Diane. So, so Kathy, you said that between all the ladies, there were 19 children. Yes. Wow. Now, I remember when you and I were writing back and forth, you had mentioned that you kind of called the children of the Sexy Six your cousins. So what was it like growing up with your cousins? You know, can you share some of your fondest memories?
Well, I think I've read this quote before, that your cousins are your first friends, and that was very true about this group. And in the group, my mom is an only child. Phyllis is an only child. Some of the other ladies, they had brothers. They didn't have sisters, so they were like sisters. And definitely by the time they were married and started having kids. So we just all grew up together. The kids range in age. I think there's maybe a 17-year span between everybody. But so even the older ones would babysit the younger ones, and we always just had a great time. We'd go to Shady Beach. We lived at Shady Beach during the summers, definitely. And then there were always big picnics where the dads came, and then the dads, threw us in the water and did all that, stuff to us. um, Ascension Beach, Ray Mulvey, who's Maddie's husband, he was a phys ed teacher at, I believe, Nathan Hale, and his summer gig was working down at Shady Beach and Calf Pasture, and then Ascension Beach. So we got in for free. Norwalk was just a great place to grow up in the 60s and 70s. And these kids were a huge part of my life.
And now, what do you remember the most about growing up in Norwalk? I know you mentioned Shady Beach and Ascension, but and any other memories that you'd like to share, parts of town that you enjoyed going to, or maybe even how, just coming back here, how has Norwalk changed for you?
Well, I think the one thing I was just speaking with my mom earlier today, and I said one thing about Norwalk is that it's very close. It seems like everybody there knows everybody, and if not directly knowing them, they know someone who knows them, or they know the street that you live on, or they certainly know the school you went to. So I think that's probably one thing. It's a very tight-knit community. And Helen says that in the film when she's talking about Whistleville in the 1930s and 1940s. And I still feel that. I certainly felt that as when I was growing up in Norwalk, but I still feel it today. I mean, when I go back, you always run into someone you knew, um, or you grew up there, so you know their parents, you know their siblings. It's just that kind of a town. It's a very friendly town in Fairfield County.
It certainly is. And, I believe we have close to 90,000 people in the city of Norwalk. And you're right. I mean, it still feels like a very small community. And I think that's what brings people here to live. So now for the technical people in joining us tonight, tell us a little bit how you recorded the film. What recording equipment did you use? You don't have to go into, super minute detail, but, just some information about how it was recorded would be interesting.
Well, it will not get too technical because I will tell you that I made this film with my iPhone, and I make all my films with iPhones. And a few years ago, I even thought about, now that I've made 2 films, maybe I should get some better equipment. Maybe I should try something different. But what I do like about making the film with the iPhone is the accessibility and the way people relax and the way it just becomes, it's not even there after a while. And they talk freely, they behave freely. And a few people that have seen the film said, I feel like I'm in the room with the women when they're talking. I feel like I'm right there with them. And so it gives that effect. Of course, you have to make up the difference in the recording and all the sound bumps and things in a post-production, which we just have finished going through. But I supplement it with the photos and the footage, and it comes together and it makes a nice little film.
It certainly does. It's amazing what our phones can do today. It certainly is.
That's right. So everyone can get on their phone after this is over and make a movie.
I like that idea. Now, of course, there's always challenges that people face when they're working on a creative project. So what were some challenges that you had to deal with when putting this film together?
Well, of course, getting some of the footage, and I think those of you who've seen the movie know that there's a lot of talking at once, and there's a lot of talking over each other. But I thought that is how these ladies are, and that is how they have always been. And in the very beginning of the process, when I couldn't figure out, I recorded a couple of interview sessions with them, couldn't really figure out how to start it. And my sister Patty said, when I think of Mom and her friends, I just think of the laughter. And I said, that's it. I have lots of laughter. Let's try to edit some of that together. And we actually had, for those who've seen the film know that there was a cassette tape found in the process of making the film from 1973, which had all of the ladies and their husbands on it. And so I was even able to pick up some Matty and Marcia laughing and dialogue as well and put that in. And that, it just really it brought back so many memories for all the families. And I think it gives everyone else who's seeing the movie just a chance to really experience and know what this friendship is like.
Definitely. Diane, any other questions?
Yeah, we do. We have quite a few. Do you have a favorite part of the film, and what is it?
My whole the whole thing is my favorite, but no. I actually, as I've been going through post-production and watching this film so many times over the past maybe 6 weeks and really nailing it down, one part really stuck out to me, and I always look forward to seeing it, even though it was probably the most difficult to edit. And that was the trajectory from when they go to high school, graduate, decide what type of career they are going to pursue, and they were quite limited back then. In the 50s, wasn't quite like the advantages their daughters had. And then they got married. So it really goes from school to career to marriage in about 4 or 5 minutes. And it tells the story of each one of them, all 6 of them. And I just love it. And we have great music in that part, kind of driving it. You're kind of want to, do a little rock and roll dancing and stuff. That would be my favorite part.
Great. Is this, how many documentaries have you made? Is this your first one?
I wish it was my first. But no, this is actually my 3rd short documentary.
In addition to the old Norwalk footage, were there any on-location Norwalk shoots that we could look for in the film?
Yes. A lot of the footage, well, there's a little Overton scene, so be sure to look for that. There is some footage of driving through South Norwalk down Washington Street and under the bridge. I was looking for snow. One of the climate change has not made that part easy, but I did want to have some winter weather in the current footage. And so I came back last February in 2019 and stayed for 2 weeks. And probably about the day before I left, it snowed in the morning. And I said to my dad, let's go. He drove and we went out. We went to the beach. We went to calf pasture. We filmed some snow on the beach and Manresa power plant. And by the time we got back home, the snow was melted. So.
Yes, I know. We've been having very warm winters the last couple of years. That's it for the chat for the moment.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Diane. Talking about your other documentaries, that was a great question, whoever asked that, and it's going to segue into my question. So, Kathy, tell us about the other documentaries that you've made. I heard that they all contain something about Norwalk. They all feature Norwalk in some capacity.
Yes, they do. My first film is called Jeanne and Mike Original Art, and that is about my mom, Jeanne, and dad, Mike. I really started, just playing around filming them when I first got an iPhone. This is, 10 years or more ago. But then at one point, around 2014, we actually hit on something that we thought this might actually be the subject of a documentary. It's called Jeanne and Mike Original Art. And it is about my parents and the art in their house. And all of the art in their house in Norwalk has been done by them or family members. So that was a little 14-minute film made with, I think, an iPhone 4S or something, and edited on iMovie. And, I really didn't know what to do with it. I entered it into a film festival called the Underfunded Film Festival, because I believe if I really stretched it, we spent $500 making that film. And it was well received. So I thought I would make another film. The next film came about when I was visiting Detroit. As you mentioned earlier, I do some photography. So I was in Detroit doing some photography of the ruins and that stuff, which, it's a big thing for photographers to go there and do. But while I was there, my dad called and said, why don't you go see if you can find my Uncle Frank's house, my father's uncle. And because he had left Norwalk in the 1920s and moved to Detroit. And so that film is called Uncle Frank's House, An American Dream, and it is a journey about finding out more about my uncle, who was born in Norwalk, and the people I met along the way on that journey. Both those films can be seen on the Sexy Six website. So if you go to the www.thesexy6.com, down the bottom, you'll see 2 little thumbnails. Those are those 2 films.
Great. Another question. Do the friends still live in the same area of Norwalk? And how do they communicate with each other?
Actually, well, they don't live in the Whistleville section anymore, because that is much of that's gone, unfortunately, but they are still all in Norwalk, and they communicate well. You know, they do pretty well. They're on Facebook and they text, but their number one way of communicating is the telephone.
Exactly. Is the Sexy Six in any film festival? We talked about that a little bit.
Well, that's our plan. We literally just finished this film about the day before you guys sent your announcement out. As we talked about back in the summer, you gave me, you said, why don't you take up until the last minute? And so I did. Not my choice, but that's how it went. So we've just finished it, and you guys are the first to see it, the Norwalk Historical Society group. And so our plan is to put it out into film festivals starting, by the end of October. I'm sure we will have applied to some.
This is great, and we're very honored that the Norwalk Historical Society was the first one to premiere this film. That's all for the chat for right now. So do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I do. So Kathy, you had mentioned, you filmed this with your iPhone. It's something that people could do if they all they need is a cell phone. So what are some suggestions that you can give to people who want to sit down with their relatives and interview them about their family history, about their lives? What types of questions and just any advice that you could give us about that?
Well, I think if you have a favorite relative, you've probably spent a lot of time with them, and they've probably told you certain stories, maybe sometimes over and over again. And those stories, like maybe they were grew up during the Depression, and they have memories about that, or served in World War II, or maybe they were a hippie and they were in a band in the 60s, whatever. It's important to get those stories down, and they probably have some great photos to go with that. And you can just record them. There's different services online and different apps that can help you do it, but you can just press record, or you can film and then use the recorded audio just later and supplement it with photos. iMovie is a free app on the iPhone, or maybe it's $4.99, but I actually do little films around San Francisco all the time, just using my iPhone, and come home and make a little something on my phone. So it's fairly easy. And if you are so inclined, and you have, like I said, if there's a relative in your life, a favorite relative who's got some great stories, that's a great place to start.
Thank you so much. So what's your next project? If you can let us in on the information, what's next?
Well, there's a couple of things bubbling up, and I guess we could call them in pre-production, and I'm gonna have to pick one. Once we completely wrap this film in the next few weeks, and pursue that. I will say that they're all Connecticut based, and even Norwalk based. And I do believe that I'll probably have to start with interviews on Zoom early in 2021. But that's our life as it is now, and that will resonate with those films should they actually go forward and be completed.
Great. We have a few more questions from the chat area. How has making this movie changed you?
Ooh. I think it's taught me to be more patient, to follow the story, let it take you where it will take you. And it also made me take a look at my own friendships and the people that I'm friends with, and how I keep in touch with them. And do I do as good of a job as my mom and her friends? And the answer to that is no, but we can keep trying.
Absolutely. Sounds like you're a self-taught filmmaker, are you?
Pretty much, I am. Like I said, this might be my third career or fourth. I've lost count, but I did work in digital media for a while, and what came from that was began as social media and photos and web work, and then it evolved into everybody wanted video. So I pretty much learned by doing.
Great. What would you say was the secret to the lifelong relationship?
I really hope that you'll all watch the film, because the ladies say it, and they practice it more than anything. But I do think that their number one thing is about keeping in touch, is not letting things go. Pick up the phone.
Great. That's it for the chat right now.
Sorry, I unmuted myself. So I have just one final question. So we are going to be wrapping this up soon. So if there's anyone who's on the meeting with us tonight that has a question, please put it in the chat so we can kind of wrap up with audience questions. But my final question to you, Kathy, is what do you want viewers to take away from this film? And maybe you kind of answered that a little bit, but just thought I'd kind of find out what you want people to take away from it.
Well, I think you're right. But it is the meaning of friendship, and checking in with your own friends and your own friendships, and I would just suggest to everybody, when you leave this call tonight, give an old friend a call, or send them a text or a message on Facebook. Somebody you haven't heard from in a while, who you remember fondly, who you have good thoughts about. You kind of wonder, like, yeah, we used to hang out. We seem to have lost touch a little bit. Reach out, ping them. Because sometimes people think, oh, too much time's gone by. They've forgotten about me. They're busy. They don't, that's usually not the case.
Very true. And I love how, I believe it was it Helen or Phyllis? They were saying friendship takes effort. You have to put effort into it. And, when I heard that, I was like, oh my goodness, like any relationship, there has to be that effort put in, unless it's if you don't, it's just not going to go anywhere. So definitely. Well, Diane, do we have any last questions from the audience?
Last couple of questions. Are you still accepting donations for the film? You want to hear that?
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. And yes, this was an independent film. We were able to raise a lot of money, a good deal of money, for our post-production on Indiegogo. And I think you guys have the link there. We have a few things available that for sale to raise money. One is a poster, the poster that you saw when you first logged on, a beautiful 4-color poster of the Sexy Six. It's also behind me here. You probably can't see it that well. And we also have a cookbook coming out. And those of you who've seen the film know that food and parties were a big part of these ladies' lives. So the cookbook is called Recipes or Key Ingredients for Lifelong Friendships. And there are recipes from all 6 ladies, all their kids, got together, went looking through the archives, found some favorites, and they had a progressive dinner party where they had 6 courses and they went to each house. So the book is being laid out now, but it is 6 sections, one for each course of the progressive dinner party.
That was the last question. That was coming up. So that was a perfect segue.
Oh, good.
Well, Kathy, I want to thank you so much for joining us this evening. And thank you so much for creating this film that truly shows the beauty of friendship. And please tell Jeanne and Helen and Phyllis and Ida hello from all of us. And we hope that they stay safe and healthy. And please let them know that we are thankful to them for sharing their story with us. And of course, we always have Matty and Marcia in our thoughts, and hopefully they're smiling down on us tonight. So, and our audience, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you for your wonderful questions. And we hope that you'll join the Norwalk Historical Society again for upcoming events. Actually, on Friday, October 23rd, we will be releasing our own movie. Yeah, we turned our very popular ghost tour into a film. It's called A Haunting at Mill Hill, the movie, and it's our biggest fundraiser of the year. So we hope that all of you will tune in for that. We'll be posting information about it coming soon on Facebook, on Instagram, and then you can always visit norwalkhistoricalsociety.org, and you can find out information on the upcoming Haunting movie, as well as how to donate and become a member of the Norwalk Historical Society. And don't forget, you have until Sunday at midnight to watch The Sexy Six. If you need the link, we did post it in the chat. And if you can't get it from the chat, just email us info@norwalkhistoricalsociety.org, and we are happy to email you the link and the password. And you can always go back into your email. We sent a bunch of emails with the link and password. So there's many ways for you to find it, but please, if you can't, just reach out to us and we're happy to give you the link. Are there any last words you have for us, Kathy?
Please watch the film and enjoy it. And the link is www.thesexy6.com, and enjoy the film. Tell your friends in Norwalk about it. If anybody wants to see it after the 4th, we probably can figure out a way for that to happen. But more than anything, we really hope to have a screening in Norwalk sometime next year.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you for everybody who participated.
Thank you so much, and have a great night, everyone. We're going to end the meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks.